of Visual JForex, I will be explaining to you the use of indicator named Ichimoku VF. This is pretty much similar to the Ichimoku indicator. The only difference is the absence of cloud. Here you will find this indicator block listed amongst the indicators in other classification. Its turn is after the Hilbert transform, instantaneous trend line, the use of which we saw yesterday. Now in today's session, I will be demonstrating to you the use of this indicator. So let us straight away head to the Visual JForex board. Here I have included how it is calculated, each line. It is made up of the 5 lines, the Tenkan-sen, Kijun-sen, Senkau A, Senkau B, and the Chikou span. And pardon me if I get the pronunciation wrong because I don't know Japanese language, and I have pronounced it as per the spelling in the English. So if any of you are who are Japanese, please pardon me on that count, and you can let me know of the correct pronunciation in the comment section. I would pretty much appreciate the feedback on that count. Now coming to the indicator block, here we will use this ontick as our initializing point, the start point, and then we will have to define these parameters depending on which we will get the output values, and these are the default values which are already there for the Tenkan-sen, Kijun-sen, and the Senkau A. This is the default setup, and as per this default setup I have included the calculation. Suppose if you change these values, then you will have to change this period high and the period low for the respective period of time. So that's how it is done. Now I have included 9 for the Tenkan-sen calculation. So 9 it is in the formula, 26 for the Kijun-sen. This is simply denoting the number of candlesticks which we are going to take into consideration for the calculation. Now here the 10-minute period is the time span for each candle, and we are going to take into consideration the 9 candles of 10 minutes each for the Tenkan-sen. For Kijun-sen we will be taking into consideration the 26 candles of 10 minutes each, and for the Senkau we will be considering the 52 candles of 10 minutes each, and the lagging span, which is Chikou span, is simply the closing value, current closing value, the value of the current closing candle, which will be plotted 26 periods back, and that's how this Chikou span is formed. So I hope you have been able to appreciate these minor details of these indicator. There is an indicator which can be utilized both for the finding of the trend as well as the strength of the trend, and not to forget even the support and the resistance zone. And we can use this indicator in multiple ways. Let us plot the indicator on this chart. This is the Euro USD chart of 1 hour each. Here I will search for the Ichimoku VF. So this is the Ichimoku VF indicator. You can see we have these 5 output values, 5 lines plotted with varied output values. Now coming to these 5 output values, sometimes the traders might want to use less of these output values if you simply prefer to trade with, say, Senkau A and the Senkau B, which are also used to form the cloud. You can do that. Suppose if you want to simply work with the Chikou span and say Tenkan-sen, then you can do that also. So otherwise you can even utilize all the 5 values. This indicator is many times you can see from the chart also is considered kind of heavy, as we have to deal with all these output values and then try to make sense of what is happening on the price front. But all these output values serve different purpose for different perspectives. Now coming to its individual output segment, if we are going to deal with the Sencow A and Sencow B, we can look at the crossover of the Sencow A and the Sencow B as per the traditional established norm. Whenever the Sencow A is trading above the Sencow B, it is considered as the bullish signal. If the Sencow A is below the Sencow B, that means the underlying price trajectory is on the bearish side. And coming to the other parameters, we can also utilize the crossover between these Chicago span, which is simply the closing value plotted 26 periods back, and also this Tenkan-sen. If the Chicago span is trading above the Tenkan-sen, that is also the indication of the bullish stance. If the Chicago span is trading below the Tenkan-sen, that is indicative of the bearish stance. So there are multiple ways you can deal with this. And also the cluster, whenever there is cluster formation of multiple values coming close together, that means the price action has been fairly range bound. There is not much of a price movement. Because of that, the range has narrow, and we come to see this cluster formation. And that in a way can also be taken as a signal that maybe in the near future a fresh breakout is likely. And now the situation is evolving that this consolidation phase is likely to come to an end. So you can use these output values as per your preferences, as per your requirement, and all you have to do is see what kind of setup is going to serve your purpose in a best possible manner. You can, as is the case with other indicators, you can also simply edit these values. Suppose if you want to use a different combination for the calculation of the Tenkan, Kijun and the Senkaw, you are free to do so. All you have to do is make sure that whatever changes you make are going to help you in finding the best possible trading opportunity. This is the default setup. Suppose if I want to change it, I can do so. Now we make it say 30 and we make it 60. To some extent, these output values have now changed, as you can see from this plotting. There is a marked difference between how these lines are now plotted compared to the prior plotting when the values were in the default condition. So this is how it is, and I think depending on your requirement, depending on how you view these output values and the usefulness of the various output values in figuring out the optimum trading condition, you can make these changes. So let us restore the default values, as we will have to run the various tests on the historical data to figure out the possible combination which will give us the best possible combination for these lines. Now this is the hourly chart. If you want to trade on the lower time frame for intraday perspective, then you can simply do this change in time period, and now this is the plotting on the 10 minutes time frame. And here also you can pretty much utilize this combination to see what is happening on the lower time frame chart, and then trade accordingly. If you want to use the longer time frame, say for example the 4-hourly, we have all the options at our disposal, and this combination will work just fine. All you have to do is make sure that the combination is profitable enough, both from the mathematical logic as well as on the historical data. So coming to the defining of these parameter, you have to choose this default instrument. You can choose to work with the Euro USD, or you can make changes there. All these listed default instruments are for us to be taken, and we can take any of these indicator and try to make the algorithm for that particular instrument. We are not really going to make any changes. We will keep the Euro USD as it is. Now coming to the time period for the calculation of the Ichimoku VF. If you want to trade on an intraday basis on the shorter time horizon, then the time frames like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or even 15 minutes will do fine. If you want to look for the longer term trades from medium to longer term perspective, then I think the time frames like 4 hourly or even coming to the daily will serve the purpose better. So we change this parameter to, for example, to 4 hours. Okay, shift is the look back period. If you want to take the current value into account, you can keep the look back period at 0. If you want to go back in time, then the shift needs to be adapted and changed appropriately. Now here I have taken the look back period at 5. Now, as I said while explaining to you the various lines on the chart, we can always customize these time periods. Now this is a time period of 9 for calculation of the Tenkan-sen, and this is simply the average of the period high and the period low. So here we take into consideration the 9 period high and the 9 period low and add it and divide it by 2, so we get the average value. If we change this parameter, then the number of period will change and we will have to calculate it accordingly. The Kijun-sen and the Senkaku are also similarly defined. Then depending on the value which we put in here, we get these output values, the 5 indicators, and then these 5 indicators can be utilized to set the conditions. We can take any of these output values, set the conditions using, for example, the if block, or we can even use these output values for further calculation, or in any manner we deem fit. If you want to set any logical condition, all we have to do is take the if block, and for example, if we want to trade with the formation of Senkaku A and Senkaku B in mind. Suppose if we want to buy when the Senkaku A is above the Senkaku B, all we have to do is initiate this setup and then join the blocks, and it will carry on using this output value if the first input is greater than second input. You can also set the calculations using the calculation blocks which are provided on the platform. So this is how the system works, and we also have to keep in mind that there will be a slight difference on how the calculation is done. If you are going to take into consideration the bid value, then there will be slight difference if you were to take the ask value. Closing price. Closing price is the applicable price which will be taken for the calculation of the indicator. Mostly it is the closing price, but the applied price can also be different. So all the options are provided: open price, high price, low price. But as I have explained to you earlier also, different parameters for these indicators are calculated differently. So not much of a difference will crop in even if you choose the different applied prices. So that's it from my side for today's session. If any of you have any query or any idea to share, you can give me the feedback in the comment section. Thank you all for joining in. Have a fabulous day ahead. Goodbye.